This is Answer Me That on Storm FM, sponsored by Bar Uno.
Hello and welcome to Answer Me That on Storm FM, your weekly source for useless information and answers to questions you can be bothered to Google. Coming up this week we have a variety of questions, including how can you tell if you found the one? Are you safe talking in front of your TV anymore? What a Patreon campaign is, and what's the difference between the different types of plugs on jacks. All this and more coming up. Don't forget to get in contact with us. You can text Storm plus your message to 60300, email studio@stormfm.com, use the nifty little form on our website, www.stormfm.com, or you can go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/stormamt, or you can go over to our website, answermethat.tk. This week we want to hear what your opinions are on can you tell if you found the one, and do you actually believe in the one?
This is Answer Me That on Storm FM. Send your questions to studio@stormfm.com, facebook.com/stormamt, or text Storm plus your message to 60300. Text charged at your standard network rate.
Don't forget to text in today telling us how you think you can tell if you found the one, or if you even believe in the one at all. To text in, just text Storm plus your message to 60300, email studio@stormfm.com, go to facebook.com/stormamt, use the nifty little form on our website, stormfm.com, or go to the show's website, answermethat.tk. So first up, the question we're going to be answering is, am I safe talking in front of my TV? This is just another form of techno panic. So when they first introduced the Xbox with the Kinect and you could use voice controls, people were panicking, oh, Microsoft's going to listen to all my conversations. They're going to be giving it to the NSA or GCHQ or whoever. And people were panicking then. They panicked again when Google came out with Google Voice and you could say, okay Google, and give it your command. It wasn't called Google Voice, but it's Google now, but you get the idea. People have been panicking a long time over voice control and what actually happens to it, and if it's encrypted or not. And a few weeks ago you had the UK government saying, we don't want encryption, or at least we want a backdoor access key to encryption, which would make it pointless, because if anybody got hold of it, they'd be able to see your communication and any encrypted data. And it makes the whole thing pointless and less secure. So people have flip-flopped on that quite a bit, and the government's backing down on that, thankfully. But the idea with these Samsung TVs is that it's transmitting what you're saying without any encryption at all to a third-party provider. I can't remember their name right now, but there are a few other products which use third-party providers because they don't have their own technology like Google. So for a start, Cortana on Windows phones, that goes to a third party to be transcribed as text, which then gets sent back to a computer, which will do the search query or wherever you've asked it to do. The main panic's been people not understanding this technology, so they think it's always listening and always putting their data out there and what they're saying. But with these Samsung TVs, there is actually a way to turn the voice control off, which is pretty simple if you just Google it, or Bing, or whatever search engine you want to use. But in essence, it's not listening to you until you press that little button saying you want to give it a voice command, so people are panicking for no reason at all with this. The same goes with the phones. They don't work until you give it a command. And when it is voice activated, like OK Google, sorry if your phone, by the way, uses that, or wherever you've programmed it to do, or Cortana, or you say Xbox on, or whatever to your Xbox, it's listening for those keywords, but it only listens for them locally, so it won't actually do anything until you say the command, and that's when it starts transcribing it over to these third parties or up to their own servers to become text. So it's not always listening, and people are just making a big deal out of nothing with these TVs. If you are really concerned, just turn the voice controls off. It's simple to do, and there are plenty of documentation on how to turn it off. So our next question is, what is a Patreon campaign? So this goes back to patronage, probably quite obviously, but these days it mainly reacts to things like when you're using YouTube, say, and you've got a YouTube channel. Many people on YouTube make their money these days off the advertising on it. In fact, on the videos, if you watch them, to answer me that, if you go onto YouTube and type it in and watch it, you probably get an ad before it and after it, or a little pop-up display thing in the middle. It doesn't really make any difference to you because this is an audio podcast, so as soon as it's over, you're listening to the content. But if you click on it or look at it for a certain amount of time, and so many people do that, then we get a little money from it. Well, I do. But yeah, that's the basic idea. A Patreon campaign is when you donate to a cause or a person, and these days it's empowering a new generation of content creators where they wouldn't have any money otherwise. So there's one channel I've been watching recently, Barnacle-Lee's Nerdgasm. Really weird title, but basically he talks about tech. He's done a bit on coding and stuff. But he used to work for Microsoft. He got laid off a few months ago, and obviously it was quite upsetting to him. But what he's doing now is he's trying to do full-time YouTubing. So he'll make all these videos, he'll show you how to use 3D printers, he's done feedback on things like quadcopters with the cameras, things like that, and what they can actually do, and how there's a techno panic around them. Yet in the newer generation, the firmware actually stops you from flying these quadcopters in areas you aren't allowed to. Anyway, back to the point. The way he makes his money is by doing advertising and by people saying, oh, I'll give you a hand, or do this and that. And it can be a little thing like getting more subscribers or getting people to tweet or Facebook about whatever you're doing. It's a way to raise awareness and sometimes to raise money for a cause or for a person to make this media. Because let's be honest, if you're on YouTube, it's highly unlikely you're going to be like one of these top YouTubers making tons of money from adverts and endorsements. You're probably in your room ordering whatever you've ordered and thinking, I got nothing better to do, or I like this product, let's make a video and endorse it. You don't get anything back, so this is a little way of getting it back or making your own network about it. One example of where a Patreon campaign has actually gone well is with the Twit network. This is a podcasting network where they talk about technology and other things. But that was built up from one show talking about technology. Initially, its founder, Leo Laporte, was a radio broadcaster, and he talked about technology on his show and tell people how to use it or how to fix certain problems, which I imagine is very difficult without seeing it in front of me. When I help out my parents back home, I use TeamViewer and stuff like that so I can see their screens in front of me. But anyway, that's expanded, it's gone on, it's had a photography show, a show about Google, a show about Microsoft. There's all sorts of stuff, but the way they make their money is, or did make their money, was from building up from little donations, and then it turned into advertisers as people started to see the show. And now it's a mixture, and it's come to the point where Leo himself, who makes quite a bit of money and goes through phones like there's no tomorrow, can almost sustain himself on a wage from just donations alone from people who watch the network. So that is what the campaign is, and if you are interested in Google or technology or anything like that, including patents, iPads, then I suggest you go and check out the Twit network as well. I think it's twit.tv, just go over there and you can either watch live as they have a little log of what's on and when, or you can watch after the fact on YouTube or using your favourite podcast catcher.
This is Answer Me That on Storm FM. Send your questions to studio@stormfm.com, facebook.com/stormamt, or text STORM plus your message to 60300.
Don't forget, today we want to know what you think about finding the one, if they actually exist, and if they do, how can you tell you found them? That'll be the last question we answer today. But up next is, what's the difference between all the different jacks? So when you buy a jack, you may have noticed there's like little rings across them, usually black plastic, which stands out against the metal bit. Well, the past few weeks, I have to admit, I've become a bit of an audiophile and I've been looking into this kind of stuff. The most basic one is known as a TS, which is a tip sleeve. That's where you just have one black line at the bottom. Generally, these are used for microphones with a mono input, so it's not left and right channels, there's just one and that is all you get. The next step is TRS, tip ring sleeve. This is where you have the two black lines on it, and generally, as you've probably guessed, that's for a stereo input, so you get your right and left channels. And then you have tip ring sleeve, or TRRS, and this is used on things like the plugs for your mobile phone, where you have a little microphone built into the actual system. So this will give you a stereo input and usually, or stereo output even, when you're listening, and a mono input of the microphone. So it's usually used to do all these different channels. Sometimes though you can have a TRS where the channels are linked, so you just get a mono input or output, but usually that's what they mean. Obviously there will be times when it's not true, or people have built their own technology, or it has to be a certain way for it to work in a device. So I've been looking at little lavalier mics, the little ones which go on your tie clip and or on your lapel, and they use them in interviews and things like that. These cost quite a bit, but even for a mono input, if you want it to work in a phone, it has to have a TRRS plug, or it has to have an adapter, and they can cost quite a bit on their own without the actual device. The device generally is mono signal, and obviously you're not getting any audio back through a microphone, so that's the main differences between the different types of jacks. The next question, which we've also had about audio, is what are the foam things for that you put over microphones, and what do they do? So these are generally called pop filters. They can also be called wind filters. You can also get them where they're a circle which sits in front of the microphone, which is what we use in the studio. On my own microphone, I've got a foam pop filter, and on the high-end microphones you buy, they can have them built into the little cone which is on the top. These, well, obviously pop is going to reduce the pop-in sound. These are called plosives. This is when you get the hard P's and hard B's. As you can tell then, it comes out a bit more, it comes out a bit more than the rest of the words. There's more emphasis on it. Another thing they do is cut down on the wind. Obviously, if you're in a windy place, that can interfere with the quality, and it'll try and reduce that from hitting the microphone and being recorded. Another thing it reduces is sibilance. So with your S's and other similar sounding sounds, there's a slight hiss, and depending on who you are or if you're recording someone, sometimes the sibilance is quite bad, and one of the ways they reduce it with lavalier mics and things like that is to turn it upside down so that the wind from the voice isn't going straight into the device, and this reduces it, basically. The way microphones work is, in most of them, apart from like the newer ones and condenser microphones, there is a little diaphragm. This works sort of like the way your speaker does, well, exactly the same way. By it vibrating, it puts out sound waves, and these then come out as audio to us. But it works in reverse with the microphone. There's a little diaphragm, much like the speaker cone, which moves in and out, and this vibrates along with the airwaves and is turned into electrical signals within the microphone. But the way a condenser microphone works is that there's a small electric charge, which is generally why they need phantom power, around 42 volts, I think it is. Anyway, this goes across a plate on one side, or generally one side, and as the audio hits it, it will alter the voltage or the current going across this plate, and this changing current is measured, and it then, just like a diaphragm microphone, will be converted into audio. So there's a bit about microphones for you. There are also different patterns in the way that they can listen to the audio, which is why you see on things like Conan and stuff, there's a condenser microphone per at an angle on the end of the desk. And then when you have pop stars and things like that, they generally talk in or sing into the top of the microphone. This is because the different patterns on them. So I'll go into that a bit more next week, perhaps, if we get a question on it. But yeah, that's the different patterns for you on, or the different ways microphones work, and what the pop filters are for is mainly to reduce plosives and sibilants, but also any wind around it, it'll try and reduce. One of the questions we've had, probably relating to criminal law, as Peter Andre come up quite a bit in it as a reoccurring joke in the lectures,